Hello, friends, both old and new. John St. Baptiste here, and I have a very special guest. This is Tad. He is the, what would you say, moderator for Treasured Ones. And,
Treasured Ones. Let's go with that.
Yeah, he has some questions about Norse mythology. Because I had a medical incident earlier this week, I wasn't able to put together a cohesive episode
narrative.
To discuss a few. Yeah, narrative. Thank you. To discuss a few of these chapters, so I'm bringing somebody who has a lot of questions about Norse mythology on, and we're just going to chat about it. And if anybody out there in the chat has questions, please ask. I'll be happy to share. If we get completely off topic, this is kind of like a party stream holiday type thing, so I'm not going to be bothered by that at all. Saying hi to the chat, we've got Barbara McCullough, Bear Island Josh, whose present will be on the way very soon. Congratulations on winning that. Braun Holler was here for a moment, but she has to take the kiddies off to school because she lives on the other side of the world. And we've got Peter Griffin. Peter. So if anybody has any questions about Norse mythology, please throw them out there. In the meantime, I'm going to let Tad introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Tad. I'm very new to this. I created a couple pages. One is called Lightbringer on Facebook. The other is Treasured Ones. John is definitely one of my treasured ones. And I didn't know a lot about Norse mythology. And I woke up at 4 a.m. reading everything I could. And I still have many questions. And I think that there are a lot of comparisons to other religions and other things that, you know, can be correlated. So, I mean, give it to us.
Start, I guess, at the beginning. You know, every religion has their creation myth or legend or whatever you want to call it, story. And with Norse mythology, it's very visceral. You can just tell from a society's creation myth a bit about what and how they think. And with Norse mythology, it's visceral. I mean, you know, the Vili V, Odin are all born, and they take their father and they carve up his corpse and make the world with it.
Charming.
But it is a recurring motif in mythology that the murder of the father for the survival of his children.
Okay, that confounds me. That I've never heard that one before. I actually did talk to my stepmother today, and she is completely Nordic. And she thought, well, if you're going to do this, and I know you're scared to be, I don't like my picture taken and I don't like video, but my step family is Nordic and I'm the only tall blonde one. And she said, well, go ahead, just do it. So, you know, if you don't know how how deep the well is, you might as well just dive in. So,
we'll get to wells in a little bit. Wells are very important in Norse mythology.
So, what became of the different parts? Did they turn into children or gods or goddesses or what?
Well, his skull was made into the dome of the sky.
I lost your
Clouds were his.
voice.
I'm
Your
sorry.
audio's off.
Can you hear me okay now? Hello? Hello? Hello?
I can't hear you. I'll try to reload.
Can everybody else hear me okay? I think it might be you, Ted. Don't worry, folks.
Am
We'll
I
get this
there?
fixed. This is part of the fun.
Am I
Yeah, I
there?
hear you just fine. Do you hear me okay?
Hello?
Hello? Why don't you try popping out and popping back in? Everybody hears you fine.
Am I there?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, you're here. You're frozen, but your picture's frozen, but you're here. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Am I there?
Yeah. Yeah, can you hear me though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Cool. No,
I got
StreamYard, it's a free service, so sometimes you get bad links. It just happens.
that's why I'm drinking.
But yeah, the dome of his skull was made into the sky. His brains are the clouds. His bones are the earth. Uh, Maggots crawled out of his body, and they became the dwarves.
What?
Oh yeah, like I said, it's very visceral. But a lot of creation mythologies have very similar motifs that involve the
What?
destruction of a parent, and then through that, that's how they create the world.
We do stuff kind of different here in Iowa, so.
You're far more Nordic than I am, my friend.
Okay, so where did his children come from? I mean, there had to be princes and princesses and things, and I'm sure they're in my subconscious somewhere from laying awake all night listening to the history of Norse mythology, but I lost them, so I'm relying on everybody here.
Well, he birthed them from himself. That's another motif you have a lot of creation mythologies is that the first generation of children are born from the one singular deity, and then after that, they inbreed and make a bunch of other babies, and then they decide to create man.
Okay, am I free to ask questions and disagree with some points?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just telling you the way it's written down in the edits.
Okay, well, I'd like to go back to the Lilith story
Mm-hmm.
that God created both Adam and Lilith, and Lilith was like, "Yeah, I'm your equal," and then all of a sudden she was cast out and she was a demon, and then it's like, okay, well, we'll just take part of you and give you a more submissive person. I mean, I'm talking about religion now, and I think it's kind of the same thing. I mean,
And there's a third matriarch in between the two, who's never named. God makes her from Adam's body as well, but he sees it happen, and he's like just totally grossed out. So that's why he puts Adam to sleep when he creates Eve. Yeah, that's all from Hebrew Legendarium.
no, I know. I spent hours in the Yale libraries trying to find the context of it all, and there's so many different versions of it. And she was a demon, she was a child stealer, and actually, I don't think she was. I think she just said, "Yeah, no, don't expect your hamburger helper to be on the table at 6 o'clock every night." You know, that's just my take on it. But what the hell do I know?
No, you actually have a hell of a point there. You have that cliche: history is always written by the winners. Well, mythology is always written by the winners too.
Well, I know, and then of course, some people, will vilify the person who walked away and said, "I'm not going to take this shit."
Oh,
And
absolutely.
I think it's probably happened in everybody's lives, yours, mine, everybody who's listening. It's just the way the world works. I don't function that way. I'm like, okay, if you want to go, here's the door right here, and get the hell out.
I've been both the one who walks away and the one who's walked away from in my lifetime. So, yeah,
I've been
absolutely.
both as well, and that's just human. But to vilify somebody who is a blood-sucking, child-stealing vampire just because they felt unequal never seemed quite right to me.
Older cultures are a lot more.
But then if you're going to cut up your dad and, turn his head into the moon or his arm into a cloud or something, well, whatever.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is the recurring motif throughout world religions and monotheistic, desert-based, uh, monotheistic religions that are part of the Abrahamic family of religion are one of the very few exceptions. But generally, throughout world religions, like the older generation is killed by the younger generation, and that's how they create the world. It's really common with Tiamat in Sumerian mythology, and even to an extent in Hindu religion, which with the rebirth over and over and over and over and over and over and over again of these deities, they have this cyclical process of birth, life, death, rebirth, life, death, that goes on. But that's how the world it ends up created.
Well, and I can get on board the train with that. But so you've never explained who were Odin's children, who were the gods who came after.
Well, then you have Thor, you have Sif.
Okay, and where did they come from? I mean, they just didn't spring from nature eternal.
Well, it depends. In one Edda, Odin created himself a wife. And in another Edda, the gods had sister goddesses, kind of similar to the Greek religion. But I really quickly, I want to answer Top Shelf Fandom's question. The difference between mythology and religion. There isn't very much of one.
It's all connected.
Religion, I guess I would say, like, if I were asked to write a paper about that, I would say that the difference between mythology and religion is that religion is the belief in the universe in a certain form, whereas mythology is the stories behind it. The stories behind that belief. I think that's terribly oversimplified, but I think that would be a very simple way to explain it.
I disagree to a point that mythology stands. Mythology to me is, I mean, it's set in concrete. And religion, as we've seen through the years, especially with Catholicism, and we were speaking about this last night, especially the Borgias and different popes. I mean, they changed the Bible. They changed it to fit the political times or their ascendancy to the place where they needed to go. Mythology is a bit different. Mythology does not change. They are stories that are passed down, and though they may get convoluted, they are still the same story. They weren't intentionally changed. Do you kind of see my meaning there?
I do, but on the same note, if you read Horace, you read Virgil, and you read Ovid, they tell the same stories in very, very, very different manners.
Now, that's a matter of perspective. And I think that's fair, but rewriting something and having something passed down through generations are two completely different things in my mind. I mean, maybe not in yours and maybe not in whoever's viewing, but those are very different things.
Okay. Well, I mean, and that's the entire point of having a forum like this, is to have a discussion. But to me, that is what I would use the two different terms for. Is that the mythology is the story that leads up to the belief that becomes religion.
Well, and I hate to bring the old woman into this, but old Nan knew her stories and the lore. And that's what we're talking about, is the lore today. And, prophecies and things that were handed down.
Oh, yeah, except for a bunch of boneheaded Nazis out there, like, nobody really worships these deities anymore. And what they do is a corruption of...
No, I think there are plenty of Nazis out there right now.
Oh, no, I'm not saying there aren't plenty of Nazis out there. I'm saying, with the exception of some Nazis out there who worship these deities because it's part of their Norse belief system, you don't generally have people who practice a worship of Nordic deities any longer. I mean, you might have one person here or there or whatever, but I'm saying as a conglomerate group, it's not very common any longer.
No, but I do think it filters into our Oh, I'm a wordsmith and I can't even figure this one out. I need Johnny here for this one. It it blends. I mean, in the eventuality of where we've come today, it all blends together and it becomes different, separate stories.
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, no one is particularly the right one. And I mean, you weren't there and I wasn't there. So, I mean, we don't actually know,
Why am I
but
Mackenzie on my avatar?
what?
It's so weird. I have Mackenzie
Cece.
L. Burns from the Cylon Johns as my avatar for some reason. I have no idea why. This happened on Friday night, and it's still here, I guess. That's funny.
That's Cece, right?
That's Sasa.
Okay.
Mackenzie L. Burns. Who, by the way, she's on tonight. If anybody's watching Harlots, watch her show tonight because it is going to be awesome.
I love Mackenzie. She always has the witty and smart comebacks. She's fabulous and everybody should watch her.
Which, it's getting off topic, but have you been watching Harlots?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I have been entranced with The Crown and American Horror Story.
Yeah, we were talking about The Crown the other day. Which I need to watch.
Oh, you definitely do, because the casting and I mean everything, the cinematography and the blending of one cast to the other is something. I went to drama school and I have never seen anything more than, I mean, as fluid as that was. To put you know who my favorite is Helena.
Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah, I mean, she just she just rakes every scene that she's in.
Nice.
Well, and I'm sorry to get off topic a little bit, but it is so nice because even 30 years ago, you would never see women in their 40s and 50s being these icons of that could exude both strength and sexuality. And I think it's a great testament to where we are now, not necessarily where we need to be, but I mean, I think that's pretty awesome. And she is a fabulous actress.
What about Elizabeth Taylor?
I'm kind of mixed on that one.
I mean, even up into her 50s, she was like kind of a sex.
No, and I know I'm gay, and I'll probably get a lot of hate mail, but she just.
I highly doubt that. You're in the wrong realm for hate mail.
She never really impressed me that much. I was never a big fan of Elizabeth Taylor.
Oh, I'm just talking like general populist consensus. Like Elizabeth Taylor was iconographic and a sex symbol.
No, and I completely agree with both those statements. I wasn't a big fan of her acting, and I mean, she was gorgeous. She did so much for charities. I mean, she was, a wonderful person who, I'm sad when she departed the earth, but I don't think as an actress, other than what was her first one when she rode the horse? I'm getting old. Come on.
Oh, I know this too. Uh, oh,
Something velvet.
yeah, National Velvet.
Yeah. I mean, I thought she was beautiful in that.
I liked her in Cleopatra.
I didn't believe it. It I even at a young age, I didn't believe that a pure ivory white-skinned woman should play Cleopatra. And I even mentioned that to my parents, and my dad actually told me to shut up.
Well, one thing is that by the time that Cleopatra's family was the ruling dynasty, they were Ptolemies. They weren't Egyptians. They were Greeks. You know.
See? Lessons learned. That's why I'm here with you. You're my guide.
I'm just a drunk who reads a lot.
Oh my gosh, I wish I could show you my socks. I'm not wearing them today. I'm saving them for tomorrow. My friend for my birthday got me socks that say I drink and I know things.
Nice.
I know things, I just don't know anything about the topic we were originally discussing. So, getting back to Odin's children.
Yeah.
Where did the other gods come from? Because I'm sure that there are questions in the chat, which I can't get on my phone.
Mostly with Odin's children, there haven't really been many questions, but you have them, and we're here to discuss your questions. Odin's children were mostly made in the normal way. He wasn't like Zeus. He wasn't a serial rapist going down to Earth all the time. And
well, I think that's
you get a kid, and you get a kid, and you get a kid.
Well, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I've been alone for a while, so I guess if a god floated down to my house and knocked on my door and was like, "Hey, Tad, can I come in for some pasta?" I'd be like, "Sure, why not?" So, I mean, I don't think we should put the bad guy label on Zeus.
Well, no, Zeus is a serial rapist. I mean, you read the books. Like, he even does shit like disguise himself as a swan and shit like that. Like Zeus can't keep it in his pants. And then Hera can't deal with it. He can't keep it in his pants. And she doesn't just get a divorce, which actually was legal in ancient Greece. So she, has to do all these vengeance things. You might want to scoot a bit back from the camera, or are you having sound issues?
Nope, I'm fine. Is this okay?
Yeah. I just you were like right up in the camera, and I didn't know if that would feel very comfortable for you if you check this out on the rewatch.
Well, I'm not going to because I don't like seeing myself on camera. So by the next time we do this, I will definitely go to Clinique, have my pores closed, and get hair implants so I don't have quite as big a forehead.
A man that's more vain than me, that's really tough. I'm proud of you.
I'm actually not really that vain. I shaved my beard off to be on here today, so I don't really care.
Vanity, you think about the seven deadly, like vanity's really the only one that's worth the time.
What?
Okay, I love how this conversation's getting all over the place. I said when you think about the seven deadly, vanity's the only one that's really worth the time. Like, I don't have time for anger. I really don't. I got better things to do with my moments that God gave me.
Well,
Uh,
I don't.
wrath,
I think gluttony, as tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and Thanksgiving to everyone, by the way, and be sure to give thanks for everything you have in your life. But I think gluttony is definitely going to be a sin that we're all going to commit tomorrow.
oh, but I'm saying as a general lifestyle. Like gluttony as a general lifestyle is not good.
No, but gravy is good, and I will lick the gravy bowl. So judge me
Uh,
if you want.
like lust like gets boring after a while. Envy is just a dead end, empty road.
Yeah, I don't think I ever suffered from that one.
Sloth,
I
I always feel awful. Like if I spend a day just like laying around doing nothing, I'm like I wasted what little time I have on this planet.
I don't know. There are days I can lay in bed and watch movies and I don't feel like a sloth. And by the way, I would just like to mention sloths are pretty damn cute.
Oh, sloths are really cute. I'm just saying the sin is not cute.
Well, no, I mean, I'm a firm believer in regular bathing, so
I
maybe I wasn't the best person to pick for this Nordic thing since I was a morning talk show host. So, and I've kind of twisted the conversation, and I'm sorry.
no, that's fine. Like I said, this is an open Q&A, and this is more for fun than anything because I had nothing prepared. For those of you out there who don't know who are either watching right now or watching afterwards, I had a medical emergency the other day. I wasn't able to compile an episode for a normal episode for Believe where we're going over Neil Gaiman's work. So I just thought talking to somebody who had questions about Norse mythology would be really cool. And that's why I invited Mr. Chad on here today.
So, what started the Vikings moving out into other areas? That's what I'd like to know. I mean, trying to expand
Resources.
their empire, because I've been to Norway and they are the most calm, sweetest, nicest people. So I find it a huge disconnect to history. It was one of the cleanest, softest, most kind countries that I've ever been to. So the whole Norway thing I just can't quite compute that.
Uh, I resources. That was a huge issue with especially Britannia in general, but the British Isles in specific was raiding. They wouldn't just come and raid and take shit. They would come and with enough people that they're like, we're taking this land. And then they would work out treaties. Um, gold is a huge resource. The Vikings would come down quite often the Somme and the Danube and raid French and German cities just to get their resources. And then it got to a point where it was almost a It was like a hostage situation. It was like, well, we won't raid your city if you give us X amount of gold.
Well, I mean, I don't know if this is appropriate to say on the line, but I would have been like, you know, fuck you, go back home because I'm not giving you what's mine. Just my way of looking at it.
Well, I mean, you can do that, but you're probably going to end up eviscerated in the street. I mean, because this is a culture of warriors that they know what they're doing. Yeah, they know how to fight. And by the way, as much as, and I'm going to screen
Oh,
share.
and believe me, I'm from Iowa and I'm gay, so I know how to fight. So
I'm going to screen. A lot of people, when they think of Norse mythology, think of this very Wagnerian. And don't get me wrong, I love me some Wagner. But this late 19th century motif that, oh, okay, the helmets with wings never existed. Helmets with horns never existed. One of the things that irritates me the most about, you and I met through the Song of Ice and Fire community.
true.
One of the things that irritates me most is the armor because it is so impractical. Yes, there was ceremonial armor that looked like that with like stag's horns or antlers or wings or that was never used in combat. That is a huge liability when you're in physical combat.
No, but in all the pictures of Robert Baratheon fighting, help me.
Radar.
Yeah, I mean, in all those pictures, he was wearing the antlers.
Yeah,
And
it's like I said, that's one of the things that irritates me the most about the books.
I guess I've always wondered what connection from the antlers, and I know once again we're going off topic and somebody's going to jump my ass, but well, okay, so let's talk about what is it, the green men who guard the God's Eye, and they're meant to have antlers. So is there some context there that I've missed along the way? I mean, I'm kind of like your Sansa in this.
No, it's just that George R. R. Martin has seen way too much fantasy art from the late 19th century.
I'm a slow learner, but I do learn.
I mean, in my eyes, having done some stuff with combat and things like that, all this like extra ornamentation, like yeah, it's used in ornamental armor. It's not used in practical armor. It's yeah, and Barry Allen Johnson points out the giant war hammers and the giant axes. Like, just think of it. Have you ever used a sledgehammer? Like, you use in your house for knocking out a wall or whatever.
Well, I've never done that, so.
Okay. Well, a sledgehammer is going to weigh about 12 pounds. Now, these war hammers that they show in some of this fantasy stuff, and yes, Game of Thrones is guilty of this. Um, this is like a 30-pound. Can you imagine swinging that around all day in a battlefield? Yeah, and Beryl and Josh has a point. Warhammers generally weighed about 2 or 3 pounds, especially if it was one that somebody was going to throw. But yeah,
No, that would be an axe. A hammer would weigh a little bit more than that.
no,
And the one
actually, a warhammer would usually have a handle about this big. Weirding my camera here. It'd have a handle about this big enough for your hand, maybe two if you needed to. And then the hammer itself would be about this big, and yeah, it'd be about. I think 2 or 3 is low ball. I'd say probably 3 to 5 pounds though. You don't have
the one that Gendry was hefting looked about 8 million pounds, and
it would be completely useless in combat.
No, I'd have to drag that behind me with my donkey, and I mean, I'd be like Pod in that situation. Like, there's no way that I could even lift it, let alone swing it in battle.
Speaking of
and
hammers,
I'm not weak, by the way. I'm a landscaper, so I know how to dig. Now, give me a shovel, and I can do some damage.
Speaking of hammers, did you get to any of the mythology about Thor's hammer? You know, it actually grows when he rubs it.
No, I got there and I didn't quite understand that.
It's a metaphor. He rubs his hammer and it grows, and it gets more powerful.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been down that road before, but I'm sorry, I just had to throw that in. I know it's not appropriate.
No, that's the entire point I'm trying to make is that like Thor's hammer is in Norse mythology is I mean it's a representation of his boy parts. Maura Lee's here. Stop by.
Yay! I love her.
That's great.
Hi, Maura Lee.
Do you get tomorrow off for Thanksgiving, Maura? We'll find out in a moment.
On my phone, I can't get the chat and be on with you, so I'm missing everything everybody says. So I'm basically completely worthless. So
not at all.
What about Odin's daughters? Were there daughters, or
they all married his sons? That's a pretty common motif in most mythology.
And so we go right back to the Targaryens.
How did that happen? No, Mackenzie again. There we go. I'm totally going to have to show this to Mackenzie later because I keep turning into her.
I wish Mackenzie would join Lightbringer.
Oh, Mackenzie's got a lot going on right now. She's taking, I think it's like 21 credit hours or some shit like that.
I don't know. So tell me about the daughters. That's what the question I'm asking.
Yeah, they pretty much become spouses of the sons. It's a pretty common motif in a lot of mythology. You know,
but they have no strength or power in themselves. They're just
Oh no, they have realms and domains. Also, you have one of the really interesting things about Norse mythology is that you have the Asya and the Vanya. And the Vanya, from all uh, anthropological references, are probably an older set of gods. They're fertility gods. Whereas the Asya, the ones you're more familiar with, like Thor and Odin and so forth, are war gods because that culture changed. And
well, I take it the fertility gods were under 50 years old. Hey, it's just my take.
right, that makes
You
sense.
invited me.
Well, I think to God's age is a little different, especially since they have the apples of Idun. They keep them young forever. One of my favorite Loki stories is when he steals the apples and all the gods get old.
Hey, you know what? Can we do a Dune live stream sometime?
A Dune live stream? Absolutely.
Okay, because that is something I can quote word for word. I am completely out of my element here, but I love speaking with you, and I'm sure that we'd have a lot of people jump in on the Dune stream.
Oh, I'd love to talk a bit, Dune.
I mean, there were so many connections of Arya and Jon and everyone in Game of Thrones with Dune, and I
I
would
can see
I
that.
would I would love to do a comparative analysis of that.
I think Dune would have to be more than one stream, though. I mean, there's a lot to cover. There's
Well, I think Mara would be more than happy to jump in on that
oh,
one.
yeah, there's a good 10,000 pages of the Dune anthology, and that's if you don't include the posthumous books that were written. Which, by the way, how do you feel about the posthumous Dune books? The ones that were written after Frank Herbert passed away, done by his son and Kevin J. Anderson.
I think they did a really good job of the continuity and the vibe. And
I just don't care for Kevin
no,
J.
I mean,
Anderson's writing
you
style.
know as well as I do, when you meet somebody, you get a vibe.
Mm-hmm.
And when you read something, you get a vibe. And I think, maybe it wasn't his dad's story, but I think they did very well on continuing along the path that he had started.
Well, Barrow and Josh, I totally disagree. I think the best Dune book was the fourth one, which was God Emperor Dune. Um, but
I would
I do
have
think
to completely disagree with that. I, um, yeah, no, no. That's the only one I didn't like.
see, I felt that Dune was predictable. Dune Messiah was an adventure novel. Um, Good adventure novel. Don't get me wrong. But like God Emperor of Dune just opened so many doors and asked so many questions. That's what I really liked about it. But I'm talking about the books that were written after Frank Herbert passed away by Brian Herbert, his son, and Kevin J. Anderson. And I have to admit, I do not like Kevin J. Anderson's writing style. I I think he's a great editor. I think he's an awful writer. I cannot stand the way he writes.
Well, I mean, what we were talking about earlier is perspective. And, that's your vibe, and mine is different.
Oh yeah,
So,
absolutely. Like, I'm not trying to convert
and
anybody.
I think what book was it that the honored matres or whatever?
That's Chapter House, dude.
I That was my favorite of the series.
Okay.
And them trying to convert and bring them into one. I thought that was really cool. And it's my opinion. It doesn't have to be everybody's opinion, but that's mine. And it's and I mean that poor fucking Duncan, Idaho. I mean, how many times do you have to be brought back? It's like
Oh yeah.
just let me go. Let it go. Watch Frozen. I don't know. I
It,
I
it,
I I just I couldn't handle it anymore.
it really Duncan's character. I mean, it really is an existential tragedy that he has to keep coming back, and he has to keep coming back, and you know,
And he's the one who became the ultimate in the end.
I well, the progenitor of the ultimate.
Well, no, I disagree. He became the savior. Like, this has to end now. And I mean, that's just my thought. And people may disagree and people may not like that, but yeah, well,
I'm sure you'll get over it. I usually get over it when people don't like things. You seem to
I'm
be a person of forbearance. I'm pretty sure you can too.
well, I mean, through all those different lifetimes and then having to remember all those different lifetimes, that's that certainly has to take a toll on you.
Well, that's his tragedy, is that he can't remember all those lifetimes. I mean that's his tragedy. He knows he's existed for thousands of years, and he can't remember. That's why there's always it ends up being a confrontation between him and Leto, as he keeps getting resurrected over and over and over and over and over again. And well, what happened to my predecessor? It I find it extremely interesting.
I'm sorry, but I did not like the worm god thing whole. I did I really dislike God Emperor. And those fish speakers, nobody's ever even cared about that. Just like Lady Dustin, nobody's ever told me who the fuck the fish speakers were or why they went out with the Reverend Mothers. I mean, nobody seems to close those gaps for me. Hey,
Yeah, we definitely need to do a Dune stream, because I could talk about this for a long time.
I said at the beginning of the stream, I don't know much, but I know my Dune, but I still have questions, and I'd like to hear people's theories on those things. That I mean, they were polar opposites. So how did they breed and become the honored matres? It just, and how did the Reverend Mothers forget how to be Reverend Mothers? I mean, was it because they didn't have the spice? I have no idea.
Trauma creates strange bedfellows. And when your god dies, those are some pretty strange bedfellows you might find.
Well, Sheena didn't seem to have any problem with that.
Shanna was special. Very special. I mean, she was Leto's golden path.
Really, I think you're right. I mean, she was the golden path.
Well, yeah, I mean, he even says so. Like in his recordings, he even says so.
I don't know. I don't want to see into the future. I don't even want to go to the mailbox to see what my energy bill is going to be that's due in 5 days. So, I can't imagine knowing what's going to happen in the future.
But any other questions about Norse mythology?
So, did any of the daughters become goddesses or have
Oh
powers
yeah,
or?
yeah, all of them are goddesses. Sif is the goddess of beauty and love, and also Odin has his own little group, his Walkres. The interesting thing about Norse mythology is it was never codified and written down until after it was considered mythology. Like, there are runic scripts, but in general, nothing was ever written down until Snorri Sturluson in Iceland in the 11th century, and that was after the Christianization of the Norse world. So these are written. The only way we have them is written as a mythology from people from the past. There are no co-current writings about their beliefs. So it's all a filter of a later belief system.
But don't you think that's true with all religions? Is that, I mean, you mentioned much earlier that, history was written by the victors. And it's like, how do you dissect truth from reality?
Well,
I guess that's my game. Sorry.
No, not at all. The metaphor that I'm making is like the Iliad, the Odyssey, the Metamorphosis by Ovid. All of these things were written when people actually worshipped these deities. Whereas the writing down and recording of Norse mythology was all after the Christianization of those same countries. So there's a different context, a different.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. Sorry to contradict you, but
No, not at all.
I'm not sure that's true. there had to be somebody that was writing down and documenting what was happening at the time. And I mean, when you take away the gods and the legends and all the other things, then you have truth. And I definitely believe that in mythology, there is truth to start with, but I don't believe it's the beginning and the end.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the period in time when it was written down. Beowulf is your earliest Anglo-Saxon recording. And even that story was hundreds of years old by the time it got written down. And even more so, the Eddas, which is what all of our knowledge of mythology is based on, is the Prose Edda and the Poetic Edda. Came out even later. So yeah, those stories are there, but they've been influenced by
politics and perception and everything
and time,
else.
and just society changing.
Yeah, and that's what makes me question those things.
Well, nothing exists in a vacuum. Cat hair exists in a vacuum, but besides that, nothing exists in a vacuum.
Okay, I'll get on board with that.
Cat hair definitely exists in a vacuum. It clogs it up. I hate having carpet. The one thing that almost kept me from moving into the apartment I'm in now is the fact that there's carpet. I hate carpet. So insane.
Oh my god, my toes would be totally frozen if I didn't have carpet. I live in Iowa. It gets to 40 below. If I didn't have carpet, my feet would freeze. That's a true story.
It's just so unsanitary.
What?
It's so unsanitary. Carpet is unsanitary. It just like collects germs.
Oh my god. I mean, you and Matt Lauer should be in a cell together. Germaphobes. Well, I'm sure there'd be enough alcohol to sanitize it.
Oh, that's for drinking.
Yay! I made you laugh. All right, let's get back to Norse mythology. When did the Vikings decide they were going to strike out for Europe or for Britain?
Well, they started raiding both the rest of the mainland and Britain in about the 10th century. The first recording of a Viking attack was in I want to say 944, but I know I'm wrong.
Well, I'm sure somebody will tell you.
But yeah, they were like, oh, hey, there are these monasteries. They're like full of gold and books and other shit we can sell. So let's just like.
Yeah, I know that from history. So.
But then also, in something you don't hear about much in history classes, also they were like, oh, hey, this is fertile land. Let's go ahead and bring our families here.
Well, as far as plans go, I don't think that's a great idea.
It worked well for them for about 600 years.
Well, that is a time slip in history. So,
I mean, I can't think of very much that I've ever done that's going to affect anybody in 600 years.
you don't know that.
Steve York, who just joined us, hi Steve, uh, says that it was 944.
Hasty.
And I think you're right. I think it was 944. That was the raid on the is in Ireland. It actually not too far from where my family's from. I can't think of the name of the fucking town now.
So it wasn't the UK they went after first. They went after Ireland first.
Well, Northern Ireland is part of the UK, at least for now.
Well, you know, that's semantics. But
the UK is the United Kingdom. I mean, it's Britain, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland. At the time, those were four different countries that had very little in common. I mean, kind of a common language, but even then, not much.
No, I guess my question would be, and this can go to you or Steve, that what made them choose Ireland or the UK to go searching for, and what were they searching for, and what were they hoping for?
And shit to sell. Shit to trade. It's easier to kill a bunch of monks than it is to dig. So these monks already have all this shit made out of gold. They have books, which books like back then were ridiculously valuable. Resources. Every war, when it comes down to it, it's over resources, and it's also by guns, germs, and steel. I mean,
that's fair.
That's warfare throughout history. Guns, germs, and steel. And the Mongols were really badass about it because they would take their corpses that were dying of the Black Death when they raided Byzantium. They took their corpses that were dying of the Black Death and just launched them over the walls.
Well,
they were like, "Hey,
you got to do what you got to do.
Share and share alike, you know."
Holy crap! People are mean. I don't like it.
Chirping monkeys trying to get as far ahead as we possibly can. That's human nature.
All right. Is there anybody in chat asking a question?
Oh, well, Steve York points out that 793 was the Lindisfarne raid. That was the first Viking raid in Ireland. Thank you, 793. Not really any questions. Does anybody have any general broad questions about Norse mythology, or do you have any? I mean, we've kind of only covered the creation myth, but we're hitting about the hour and a half point. So
No, we're at 109.
No, I'm saying we're getting close to it.
Well, I think there's a lot more to be said. And I know that Mr. York, has opinions on a lot of things, and I would like to hear from him on the gods and goddesses of Norse mythology compared to Game of Thrones. I mean, if we're gonna do a comparison, because George R. Martin took bits and pieces from each different culture, and I'd like to hear somebody say something about that.
Yeah, so does anybody have any thoughts about comparisons between the stories in the Game of Thrones and Norse mythology, Norse legends? Or Tad's ceiling fan?
What?
Oh, your phone's pointing at your ceiling fan. I was cracking a joke. I do that. I crack jokes. So. Try to be humorous.
All right, here I am.
Oh, Steve says he knows nothing.
Oh, Jon Snow.
Beryl and Josh says the Ironborn plus the North equals Vikings. I can hop on that.
I agree. I'll hop on that train.
Oh, and Steve says maybe he should come on one week. I know you can't read any of this. Yeah. Oh, I would love to have Steve on here. Absolutely.
Well, he's a wonderful contributor, so I would definitely suggest that. So,
but I guess let's go ahead and cut out the middle because I'm covering the book every week, so all the myths in the middle are there. We talked about the beginning. Let's talk about the end. Ragnarok. And I'm not talking about that fucking Marvel bullshit.
Well, now we're jumping into a whole different kettle of fish.
No, it's the same kettle of fish. I mean, the seeds of Ragnarok are planted the day that the Earth's created. At least from my point of view.
Once again, I know nothing. Isn't it kind of like the Nordic hell?
It's the end of the world. It's not necessarily hell, but it's definitely the end of the world. All things are uncreated. All of the hens come home to roost.
Well, as they always do.
Every bad decision that the gods made, now they got to pay for
it. Well, you always got to pay the price.
But you don't see that in a lot of legendariums. A lot of times they just get to keep going on, doing their thing, whatever, no consequences, no real consequences outside of an angry wife or whatever.
Okay, well, I've never had an angry wife, so I can't comment on that, but I'll let you go with this one.
Oh no, one of the things I love about Norse mythology is that it has a specific beginning and an end. I mean, the only other religious belief system that has a defined beginning and end that I can think of anyway is the Abrahamic religion, specifically Christianity. Uh, in most, either things just keep going on forever, or it's a repetition of things.
If there's a beginning and an end, I think differently than you, maybe a little bit. It I think that life and lore and everything is a timeline of who we are and what we are. And that's my thought. And I'm here as a supplement. I'm like you taking your gummy bear vitamin in the morning and talking to you. So I don't really have a comment for that, but I believe that life and lore for all of us, even today, is we're all in one timeline. And that's what I believe. And I think myths, legends, and lore, they get distorted. I think that we don't actually know what happens thousands of years ago. And hell, I'm not even sure what I did a week ago, but it just, I don't think you can take those things as fact. I think we need to be more pragmatic about it. And these are the stories and the history and lore that was told to us. And I mean, we can come on these chats and we can dissect it, and we can do whatever the hell we want. But and it may not be a popular belief, but it's my belief. There is still magic in the world. And I don't know. I'm a different kind of guy. And I would certainly not cut my father apart to create different things. And Ray was a bastard.
Who was a bastard?
Oh, never mind.
Ray?
Yeah, I'm just saying that we shouldn't take anything in history or lore as fact.
Oh, of course not.
It's and it does fall into that category of perception. And you might think something, I might think something, Steve may think something, and it doesn't make it true. Do you kind of understand?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But I'm just talking about the lore itself. Oh, and I like what Bear Island Josh says here. That he said there's just no evidence and no good reason to believe there is any magic. But more important is what people do because they believe in the magic. I like that. I think that's a good note to end on.
I like that too. I do. It's what you believe in that matters.
Belief defines reality. Paradigmism. It's an entire philosophy, actually. So, Tad, do you have anything coming up on either of your uh, pages, channels? I'm not sure what you would properly call them on Facebook.
Not really. I'm going to shave my head, but I'll do that live on Facebook. But other than that, no. I'm gonna cut off my beard and my mustache and cut off all my hair and shave my head. So
You should find a charity to try and get people to donate to, especially at this time of year. I mean, if you're going to do
no,
anything about
and I'm giving my hair to the American Cancer Society because my mom was diagnosed with lung cancer on September 22nd, the day that I found out my fiance committed suicide. So I'm doing everything that I can possibly through Lightbringer and Treasured Ones to bring awareness to the American Cancer Society and mental health. And that's all I can really contribute.
nice. Very cool. I should have music up on Saturday for all of you. This is going to be a tough one, but I really have been wanting to release it for a while, so I'm pretty excited about it. Also, believe we'll be starting up again next week.
We are going to do Dune, though, right?
Yes, I have to figure out
Starting
time and
from
a place.
page 1.
Yeah, I just have to figure it. I want it to be covered properly. You know, not so much party stream like this, but actually like covered and talked about properly. So we would definitely figure that out. And yeah, I would love to have you on to talk about Dune. Maybe I can
I've
get a
got my
couple other people.
notebook right here. And oh my God, I love it that you're sucking down a beer.
I'm
Here,
white Irish trash. That's what we do.
toast me online, man.
Yes, all of you, if you have a drink, raise it. We're going to toast you.
So
For
raise your glass.
for you Americans out there, have a wonderful Thanksgiving. For those of you who don't live here in the States, still have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
And for people in other countries, it's take a moment tomorrow and give a little thanks to the people around you and the people you love. And you might not be Americans, but you know, having it in your heart that you're thankful for the life that you lead is never a bad thing. So
Agreed.
do that for us.
In the meantime, please, PLUR, be excellent to one another. And party on.
I love